from David Haney at Outkit, and Ollie's going to talk about his journey towards a more sustainable future business for Morvello.
Thank you. Well, it's always good to see I'm going to be following a very polished PowerPoint presentation with someone who hasn't used PowerPoint for 15 years, so it might not have all the bells and whistles. But we're also, the other end of the spectrum, I guess. We're Morvello's a small business. We've been going 12 years, bootstrapped. In fact, let's try and get onto some of the things. I'm not probably putting them in any order, but we're 5 employees based in Brighton, self-funded, so no investment. Founded 2008. Box of t-shirts, £500, and a lot of the cycle outdoors industries. It's just myself and my business partner came from design backgrounds, graphic design mainly for action sports industries, so O'Neill, Red Bull, and I've been a lifelong cyclist, so really enjoyed BMX from the 80s. Going to show my age. Well, grey hair doesn't really hide it, but mountain biking when that came out, cross country, downhill. And a familiar story with anyone who likes cycling is the shed grows and you think, I should get a road bike and a cross bike and a track bike. And it morphed into an accidental business. There was no plan to start a business. It just, we have ended up with a business, and it's been going for 12 years, which we're really proud of. And we've just intentionally kept it small, actually. We're not, it's not looking to kind of take over the world, but we just really wanted to do things our own way and had our own vision. So came from a design background, graphic design, so no experience in making clothing at all. So I learned everything the hard way, which is normally make mistakes, realize what you did, and then have to do it again. But it does then mean, as a small business, you're very hands-on with everything from marketing to product development, to finance to packaging. So even when it's just myself and Dave, and we'd be packing t-shirts, sending them out, you really get to see the whole business. I think the analogy is you have lots of different hats, and as a small business owner, you wear them all, pretty much all the time. We have always sold online, so most of our sales, 60% are through Morvello, our own site, 40% through retailers. Not a huge amount. We're limited resources, so we can't. We struggle to take on too many retailers and fulfill their orders. So it's quite a limited, intentionally small group of retailers that help us reach international customers. 65% of sales in the UK, as we're a UK business, and probably majority of those in the southeast, and especially around Brighton where we're based. But there's a good amount internationally as well. So mainly served by our retailers, but also through Morvello. So there is a passion for, we're a brand who are outside the mainstream. Our point of difference is we look at influences from pop culture, music, film, fashion. Our background in action sports and entertainment industries means we quite often approach design through a creative means. I generally work on the products because I was racing a lot in the clothing, so I really wanted, if I wanted a rain jacket, it would be right. Well, I don't want to. You should be wearing a Morvello rain jacket, so I would go to trade fairs and find fabrics and work on the fit and the stretch. And so I really got involved with the kind of the fabric, the nuts and bolts of the manufacturing industry, really. And then we launched our sister brand, the Overland, a couple of years ago, which was that was more to start with, to see how we could address where could cycle clothing going after doing typical lycra shorts, polyester tops. Could we do something that was a bit more versatile? But I'll touch on that a bit later. This is just kind of broad. This is a collection of some of our first t-shirts, but just to kind of give you a rough overview of the kind of things we do. So kind of picking on pop culture with Tom Simpson, nice little blend of road racing heritage and popular American TV series, but also t-shirts based on Woodstock posters and films like Ghostbusters and Roots of Mountain Biking. So this is kind of broadly similar. We take these design principles across into the cycle jerseys and the products we do. It should be fun, playful, inclusive, not take yourself too seriously. We aim to be the brand that people go to when if they're out on a club ride or with a group, that we're the kind of point of difference for someone who wants to wear something different from the mainstream, basically. So yeah, for 10 to 12 years, we solely focused on cycling. It was just in all honesty, no care for sustainability, wasn't really on my agenda. Enjoyed being in the outdoors, loved the countryside, really appreciated. That's the thing that got me into cycling, but I wasn't really thinking, much more beyond how much I enjoyed riding my bike. I wasn't really thinking where the clothing was coming from, end of life, any of these sustainability, I guess, research I've been doing now. But it was with the creation of the Overland range 2 years ago, which is like this shirt. It's actually a technical shirt. It's designed for cycling, climbing, I guess, adventure sports, outdoors, running. So the Overland initially started as a nugget of an idea to think, well, how could sports clothing look a little bit different? And that's, again, the sustainability wasn't a huge influence in that to start with, but it quite quickly became apparent that I was just looking at the box of cycle clothing I had at home, and I'd wear it for a ride, but it just seemed a bit excessive. It seemed like, do I really need 5 different cycle jerseys and all these different other bits that were just ever mounting in a box? And then you have all your day-to-day clothing as well. So obviously the nature as people, as consumers, is you want the latest thing. You want to buy a new thing. You want to buy something that then hopefully gives you an added enjoyment of the outdoors, or maybe supporting brands who you follow. But it just seemed, is there a way to combine the two? Do we need 2 lots of clothing when one would do? So the Overland was developed to solve that need. Could it be more versatile? Could you trim your wardrobe down by 50% and still do everything you want to do? So, I actually went through that myself. I kind of cleared out my wardrobe, cleared out all the cycle clothing, and it's more a test really. And I replaced it with Overland clothing to see if I could just, so I've actually come here wearing all Overland clothing because there's actually none other in the wardrobe. So I have to wear it, and I want to wear it, and I feel fine walking around London and cycling around London. So, and I mentioned the Overland because that was the first instance I started to think about sustainability. So I was looking at how we could reduce a person's clothing footprint by producing less clothing. So someone only needs to buy 1 shirt, and that will do exercise and interviews, for example, whereas rather than having to buy 2. The other, as I was researching sustainability, as probably many of you are doing or are interested in, you come across some quite horrifying statistics. And this is, again, based from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, who are generally the lead reporters on anything sustainable, circular economy related. So 80 billion, this is a few years old, so again, it could be larger than that still now. So 80 billion items of new clothing produced each year. So 400% more clothing produced in 20 years ago, which just, that one just horrified me. So I'm just thinking, so that's, when I was 23, it doesn't, I'm aware that time has flown by, but 400% more clothing is just astronomical. And then clothing utilization has decreased 36%. And this was one of the inspirations behind the Overland. It's just, we were thinking, is clothing becoming too specialized? What can we do to change things? And obviously there is a marketing angle there. You want to be a point of difference to other brands, but But hand on heart, it really came from a point of sustainability rather than a place of, well, what are other brands doing or not doing? Globally, customers, I mean, there is a financial side to it as well. So globally, customers miss out on £376 billion worth of value each year by throwing away clothes they could continue to wear. Up to 6% of people admit to owning more clothing than they need, which I'm certainly guilty of. I'm definitely not coming at this from a point of I've completely got sustainability in my life sorted, but I am a consumer. I still look for the best bargains, but I am making small changes to fly less, ride my bike more, reduce the amount of new things I buy. And I know that's probably going to sound very strange from an owner of a business who needs people to buy new things to keep me living. And CO2 emissions set to grow by 1,200% by 2050. And the oft-cited, Patagonia leader, Yvon Chouinard, was a quote I heard on a podcast, the Dirtbag Diaries. So everyone needs to step up to do what you can according to what your resources are. A bit like Adam touched on, sustainability is it's a very daunting prospect, and it's tempting to think it's so big an issue that I can't do anything. So Adam was saying about the 2-minute beach clean. You need to find your small way of doing something. So we're different to Internet Fusion. In fact, we're a small business. So it could be tempting to think, well, we're a small business. Our impact is probably quite low anyway. We'll just wait for the big boys to do it, and then we'll just follow their lead. But actually, there's a lot. The economy is held up by small, medium-sized businesses, probably the size of mine, a bit bigger, but this is together, they're bigger than the big industry. So the reason I'm standing up here talking is to try and encourage small businesses like mine to make this change, because if you can make these small changes, then it builds up to a large impact. A bit like choosing to fly less, or maybe you are, cutting out on red meat. It's not going to change the world in itself, but multiply that effect by the other businesses, the other individuals who will do the same, and it becomes a great, quite powerful prospect. So my resources are, I'm a director of a business, so I have the power there to make decisions that change the business and how we do things. And we have loyal customers who stay with us. So we have an ability to influence them. If we're making these changes and we're being vocal about the changes, then we can help, maybe, a little bit like Adam said, we can help them change their ways as well. So it's all about sphere of influence and knock-on effects. So, but what is sustainability? Is it using recycled fabrics, carbon offsets, or reducing plastic from supply chains, or maybe moving manufacturing products closer to the end user to reduce the logistics environmental footprint, or even reducing production, effective recycling and transparency. I mean, really, sustainability is all these things, and everyone has a kind of a pro and a con, really. But I just wanted to touch on the word sustainability, because this is something that I sometimes feel increasingly uneasy about. So I talk about sustainability. Morvello is not at the point of being sustainable at the moment, but we aim to be a sustainable brand. But my concern is that some people or some brands or companies will use sustainability as a means of, I guess, a modern greenwashing, because it's a bit of a catch-all term, really, sustainability. I mean, it's easy to go, we're sustainable, but in what ways are you sustainable? If you're making these steps, I think it's a transparency that makes a difference. You have to, if you make these changes, you have to be they need to be vetted either by an external source, like a B Corp, maybe. I mean, that's the pinnacle to get to, because then there's no way of hiding what you're doing or where you're going. Hang on, just grappling with PowerPoint. Oh, okay, no, I'm getting there. But it's with sustainability as well, it's not simply black and white. So the first point, using recycled fabrics. So we're about to start using recycled fabrics. You know, there's plenty of other cycle brands who already do. We weren't in a position to make a quick change at the moment because we identified that, well, actually we still had rolls of existing fabric. So we should use those ones first, you know, because all the carbon footprint's already embedded in that fabric. So we should use that fabric before making the move to recycled. And it's the more we looked into sustainability, sometimes every perceived improvement can have a counter argument. So with recycled fabrics in sportswear, which, you know, is increasingly popular, which is a step in the right direction. So on the one hand, they take, you know, plastic destined for landfill or incineration, you know, mainly such as bottles, and then they turn them into, you know, viable fabric. So recycled polyester being just as good as virgin polyester, and using less resources and a reduction of CO2 emissions by 59%. So it's all good. It's all a step in the right direction. But on the other hand, the recycled polyester is still polyester. It still uses at least 3 times as much energy to produce as natural fibers. It still produces microfibers. And the process of recycling impacts the environment too, as many of the recycled polyesters need to be bleached, and inconsistencies of how they absorb dye result in high water, chemical, and energy use. And then there's an academic debate concerning the calculation of CO2 emissions in the comparison between virgin polyester and recycled polyester, because the impact of the fiber's first life is not included in the overall environmental assessment of recycled fabrics. So it was, the more I've looked into sustainability, the more you do have these conflicting messages, and sometimes it's tempting to think it's just, I'm getting one message here, what am I to turn? But fundamentally, the move to recycled fabrics would be a good one, because then more fabric mills would be improving their processes, improving their efficiencies, until it gets to a point of where there's no reason for them not to do recycled fabrics. And then maybe they can do a smaller amount of minimum. So small brands such as ourselves, who would struggle to make, say, 3,000 yards minimum, because we'd be making jerseys from it for another 6 years, then it becomes economically viable for a small business to make small runs of recycled products. So perhaps Mark Carney was saying earlier this year that maybe we need 50 shades of green, and to acknowledge there's no perfect solution, but instead make best case judgments as to what's right for the business and what's right for the consumer. So if recycled polyester becomes a norm, demanded by customers, demanded by businesses, then the processes will surely improve, and the energy and the carbon emissions would be reduced through those improved efficiencies. But we all have to make that change. So I touched on it before, like Morvello and the Overland, I'm not here to say I've solved all those issues. It's more to say these are things that I've read about. And as Adam touched on, it's the knowledge side of moving to sustainability is quite a barrier, because there's an influx of information. But what I have seen with brands who focus on sustainability is a lovely collaboration between us. So very open as to how to improve things. Can we improve logistics, the packaging, where the product's made? And I think to scale some of these problems requires that collaboration rather than trying to keep it to yourself. So sustainability really, I think, is still in its infancy, but it's often cited we have 10 years to make a difference. So it needs rapid growth, and it needs brands, small brands such as ourselves, to take ownership of all these elements, and maybe if you can't address all of them, focus on one and have that sorted, because each time you will address one of these elements, it will improve how you're doing things before, and it's something not to be put off till, well, I'll leave it to the next collection launches in 6 months, 12 months. They need to be done now in order to ingrain those within the business. So I guess one of the key points about this talk is it worth it? Should we do it? Do the customers want it? Could we just go ahead as normal and make some money and just ignore it? Just wanted to put this picture of Copenhill, which is a power plant in Copenhagen, as an idea of the type of lateral thinking that maybe we need to address in sustainability. So this is a power plant. It takes 30 lorry loads of rubbish per day and turns into clean energy for the city. What it also has is a dry ski slope running down it, a hiking trail and running track and climbing wall in a city that doesn't have any elevation. So I thought that's quite a unique approach to a problem. And it's more representative of the cliche thinking outside the box. I think as we all approach sustainability, we've just got to think outside of how we do things currently. So over the last few years, and even more so during lockdown, sustainability then has become the heart of every decision we make. So it's not just a nice to have, it's just like, so we're going to make this change. How can that be more sustainable? How can it make us a better business in the long term? And actually, it's not coming from a competition with other brands. It's very much, for Morvello and Overland at least, it's a kind of a personal journey, because we're a small brand, so there's 5 of us, so we're all involved in it. We all want to make these changes. And we all get quite involved in looking at the products, thinking, what can we do? What can we change? Can we upcycle? Can we start new processes that keep our products in use for longer? So we have made some changes. Lockdown has given us a chance to think, and as people say, it gives us a chance to rebuild, to start from scratch and to be able to put new systems in place. So we moved to our own warehouse. We used to use a third-party fulfillment company, but we couldn't have full control over what they were doing, the couriers they were using, the power, the electricity they were using. So we brought it all back to Brighton. So we have our own warehouse now. It's run on renewable electricity. It's also owned by a community interest group as well. So all our rent goes towards funds for social and environmental causes throughout Brighton. As part of this restart of the business, we wanted the environmental concerns are at the heart of sustainability, but I also think we shouldn't ignore the social side as well. We need to bring other people on that journey to make that move to sustainability. And we've also looked at products and the sustainability side. It's not just from the recycle side. It's what can we do that's different? How can we minimize the carbon emissions from our products? So can we use waste fabrics? Can we use fabrics from other industries that maybe they're being retired, but the carbon footprint of a product is primarily at the fabric and design stage. So by using alternative fabrics or finding other ways, so you're not necessarily buying recycled fabrics, maybe there's other ways of finding other fabrics to use in products. And that's an example of just the level of thinking or the direction we're going. Is we need to start approaching product design from a different angle. But we've come at it from a standing start. As I mentioned, we didn't have any concern about it, and now it's at the core of everything we do, because maybe as 5 individuals within the business, we all want to make that change. And my passion for it has come about reading those shocking statistics, and the more I read about it, and obviously it is in the press a lot more, but it also comes from my children, who are 12 and 9, and I have a niece and nephew of broadly the same age. I think it was my nephew actually said, Uncle Ollie, do you know that the clothing industry is one of the worst polluters? And it's just like, and I'm getting that from a 9-year-old child. I'm thinking, which made me kind of fairly uncomfortable, but they're learning this at school, and I do hope, and actually obviously Jamie touched on the point about his 15-year-old.
He cares, obviously.
Yeah, but I mean, they will. So my children are probably in that young age where they still care before they get to the dismissive teenage 20-year-olds, but they're still learning it at school, and they will become the consumers who make these decisions. So I think everyone does go through that, just focusing on the self through teenage and 20-year-olds, but then they will be the ones fighting for change. And actually, if you're not a brand who's making a change, you will definitely be left behind, because it's not a case of when it's going to happen, if it's going to happen. It's a case of when it's going to happen, and it takes time to implement. From a small brand, it takes time to implement strategies. We don't have a sustainability division. It's kind of me largely, along with like repainting the warehouse and things like this. So you have to make these decisions now in order to feel the effects. It needs to be ingrained in your mindset with every decision you make. And I touched on transparency because this is important to us. And so when we decided to make the change in July last year, we wanted to be open about it. So on our site, we do monthly sustainability updates. So, and in the first instances, you make these big strides, and everything feels like you're just really motoring ahead, and changing the plastic packaging to be compostable or biodegradable, and increasing recycling rates. And then but there are other months where you feel like there haven't been those big steps, and it's important not to be disheartened by that, because it can't be a gallop all the way. It needs to be, you will make some connections, some thought that will improve the business from a sustainability side. But it might just be someone you've met, and then 3 months down the line, that person you've met has opened a door that suddenly means that, maybe actually we can use this system for returning our products that completely removes the need for even the recycling of paper. It just is looking at the whole logistical issues as well. So coming back to the sustainability, I feel sometimes that's still focused on very much a linear model. It's still a make a product from recycled fabrics, sell it to the customer, and then end of life, what happens to it. It's a bit woolly. Whereas I'm really thinking that actually it's a circular economy is a better model to focus on. So the circular economy is the whole system. It's not just the consumer side to it. It needs to. Actually, no, I'll come back to that one. I'll get to that one anyway. So I came across this quote by Charles Darwin. You may have heard of him. As a means of, so it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent. It's the one that's most adaptable to change. And I thought that was very applicable to a small business like Morbello. So we're not the biggest business, but we can be very adaptable. In fact, we could possibly be more adaptable than the bigger businesses. We don't have board meetings. It's largely myself and Dave and the 3 others who work there go, should we do this? And we go, yeah, we should do this. And then that's the board meeting done and the change implemented. So hang on. Oh no. So hang on. No, I've lost myself. Wait for it. So yes, talking about the circular economy. So the circular economy is where we are wanting to push Morvello now. So I feel the term sustainability in my mind still conjures up a linear model of make, sell, and then whatever happens to the product at end of life is down to the consumer. Whereas if we focus on the circular economy, then that is the way that we can solve the issue. I think I read a figure again from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation saying that renewables will only help us 55% of the way to reducing our environmental footprint. The other 45% needs to be in closing the loop. So it's not just about making a jersey from recycled fabrics and selling it to the consumer and then leaving it to them. It's starting to set up processes where, well, what happens? How is that jersey made, and can it be effectively recycled at the end of its life, or can it even come back to the brand and be repaired, or even sold on again as a burgeoning re-commerce business, which is all about selling secondhand clothes, really, but in a way that is like new. And I feel it represents an opportunity for brands, because then you can have a very close relationship with the consumer. So where we want to be as a brand with Morvello is someone buys a jersey from us, and say it's a new jersey, they keep it, but maybe something happens, a zip goes or some stitching goes. So rather than them return it to us and us sending out a new product, which is still valid, they could still do, but then there's two products, double the environmental footprint. Can they send that product back to us and we fix it, repair it, send it back to them? So we become more of a partner with the customer. We're not just a brand. And that customer, when maybe the jersey can't be repaired, maybe it is at its end of life, then we become the person, or we become the brand who then take that clothing and recycle it for them. Not just taking it down the tip and you hope it's gone. You just put it in the bin and you hope it's going to get somewhere that's going to do some good. You send it back to the brand, who actually then has links to recycling suppliers who will, hopefully then break it down, make it into pellets, polyester pellets that then can be spun into new yarns for more clothing. But from a customer point of view, they get to have closer contact with that brand. You become, like I said, a partner with them on that journey, so they can buy from you, they can have it repaired from you, they can even return it to you when it's no longer, when it's at its end of life, and you can deal with the recycling. In which case, then they're more likely to buy from you again, because sure, you can offer them an incentive for them to return it to you, so then they can buy another one of your products. And they might buy one of your new products, or they might buy one of your reconditioned older products. And I believe the circular economy is not just beneficial then for the environment, it becomes a real clear opportunity to increase that relationship with the customer, which is fundamentally, I think, what every brand wants. And that's it.